However, Almond felt that she'd heard that voice before but couldn't remember where she'd heard it the following day. She called them once again to tell them the plan, but at the same time, Travis asked Oslo why they were doing all this for a former agent. So Oslo revealed that no soldier could exceed him because even the clone they created was nothing but a coincidental success, and they still need his full genetic code in order to fully replicate him on the other side of the country. Kazuki told them that Yuji was going to be traded to Oslo in 3 days, but before then, they needed to gather 100 million Arisu. Thought they would need to sell Myru, but Kazuki told her to think about it calmly, because no one would buy her worthless body anyway. You're a victim. The first thing Kazuki made the girls do was have Sai create a bank account while Arisu practiced sniping. At the same time, Almond began driving on every street of the city to study the layout, but she continued feeling as if she'd heard Tanatno's voice. Before a few days later, Mitu came back from traveling across the world saying she met some sketchy Nigerian prince who sold her some stolen phones and used them to open an Indian scam center. With all the money she made, she eventually bought a yacht and traded it to some 3 random losers. But none of them knew that it was actually JB who was the buyer, while JB's massive cannon stared at the beach on the screen. She saw a message from Thanatos saying that Yuji's health is deteriorating inside his jail cell. He was placed inside solitary confinement for 3 days, but the only word he kept repeating was eventually the day of Yuji's transportation arrived, and Arisu ordered the hotel room on the highest level. When she was inside, she created a strip with defibrillators to clear the glass, and her job was to snipe the vehicles carrying Yuji from underneath the building, Kazuki LEDM, to a bulletproof pickup truck, and had Sai by the compounds for creating non-lethal explosives and tear gas. But for Yumo, she created 6 backup plans saying that she might be erased soon, so she would need Yumo to lead the team. When she disappeared on the other side of the country, Millie was seducing some worthless pilot inside a bathroom stall. But as soon as he undressed, she knocked his ass out cold, telling him no hot girl would want his worthless, ugly sass, and walked off at 5:48 p.m. The guards were ready to transport Yuji, and a few minutes later, 3 vehicles began traveling towards Oslo's ship. But as Arisu aimed towards the vehicles, a rogue vehicle appeared and began firing at them before 3 others appeared and eliminated all of the soldiers and hijacked the vehicle carrying Yuji. As Yuji woke up inside the car, Travis told him that his new wristband was a new nuclear bomb, and it would detonate with the slightest increase in his heart rate, or if the timer went off, so he had no choice but to meet Oso from above. Irisu was able to lock onto the target and fired at a test toy, so for her next shot, she promised that she would bring back her father home and fired at the vehicle, destroying the engine with a single shot. A few seconds later, she managed to hit the second car's engine along with the third, and while they were all immobilized, tens of gas canisters appeared, and Sai began walking inside the fog. While the guards were all blind, she began eliminating them one by one before rushing to clog Travis's weapon and knocking him out when she found Yuji. She told him that she was here to save him, and from the dust, Almond came inside the pickup truck. And when backup arrived, she began speeding backwards to avoid them from Sei's skirt. She took out anti-armor explosives and threw them onto the cars before they were able to escape inside of Oslo's headquarters. He heard Travis apologizing for losing the valuable merchandise, but Oslo was glad he was able to get his job done, because with Yuji's bracelet activated, he had no choice but to come back a few hours later. Kazuki told Amin that Thanatos would be deleting her soon, but from outside the car, a helicopter appeared and began firing at them as she began speeding away. Mitu nearly fell off the car, but Yuji managed to catch her in the last second and tried to maintain his heart rate low. However, Kazuki told them that she brought a backup before their connection was erased. With nowhere to dodge, all the girls tried to protect Yuji, but from the other side of the cliff, a helicopter appeared with Millie inside, and she began firing at the one tailing them until it destroyed its engine. Sending it launching down a few hours later, they made it to a hidden location, and JB made it to the center of the Phatos system, where a platform ascended from the ground. Inside of the device was Kazuki's body, and after it was revived, her brain. was integrated back along with her consciousness together with JB. They began driving towards the ship she bought, and Kazuki called Almon to give her the signal inside of an abandoned tunnel. Almon began speeding towards the end of the dam and activated the rockets, attached to boost them forward after they managed to go full speed. Their car launched out of the dam and barely landed onto the ship. Even so, they were all safe, and Yuji managed to keep his heart rate under control. But when they saw Mew struggling to swim, they thought it would be better if they let her useless, ugly ass drown. That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that just then, a massive submarine appeared beside them. And once it landed, a latch opened, revealing Kazuki from the inside after getting on the ship. Amon wondered if it was really Kazuki and asked how she was still alive. So Kazuki reminded her that she promised to meet her again one day and that she kept true to her promise. Almon ran towards Kazuki crying as she hugged her close. At the same time, Yuji woke up inside one of the cabins to his old lieutenant. But before he could talk to him, some ugly blue-haired chick told the lieutenant that Kazuki was calling for him. Once he was gone, the girl introduced herself as CIA agent Zoe Graham and asked him if her last name reminded him of anyone. However, when Yuji said that it didn't, Zoe told him that her husband once accidentally hit a poor girl on the road, but on his way to take her to the hospital, that girl ended his life with a pen and burned down his car to destroy all evidence that girl was Yuji. So Zoe pointed her weapon at him, saying that it was her turn for revenge with the wristband around his arm. Yugi asked her to wait until he finished his mission, promising that he would come back once he fulfilled his duty. After all, he's known this day would arrive where the ghosts of the people he killed would come to haunt him, so he promised to come back. Hearing those words, Zoe pulled her weapon away, saying that killing Oslo would be saving countless innocent lives, so she would protect his life until he was able to complete his mission outside the cabin. Kazuki told the principal that this submarine would be part of their new school, along with the island that Yuji owned a few minutes later. However, Yuji wondered why he has his own island. So Kazuki revealed that Akko bought it with all of the billions she made and put it in his name before her death even. So she never said a word to Yuji about it. But Kazuki asked Yuji if there was anything else he wanted from her. Yugi slapped her, telling her she had no idea how awful it's been living without her, and asked her if he could cry on her, hugging her clothes and letting out all the sadness he'd been holding back throughout the years after holding on to her. Yugi was angry once again at how she hid her existence from him and grabbed her away. A while later, Kazuki was struggling to breathe, and she told him to never do it with any other girl. But Yugi wondered what she meant by music, that Millie wondered why he fisted her face. But Yuji apologized, saying he meant to hug her instead. Began screaming at Yuji for punching a girl, but Millie told her to keep her ugly ass out of their relationship, and all the girls wondered if she enjoyed 50 Shades of Grey. Once everyone was gathered, Yugi told them that he would be facing off against Oslo while they went to the island, but promised that he wouldn't die. After all, he had a home to go back to. But before he could leave, Meru said she wouldn't go against him, but her eyes turned and green, and she said she would give him a good luck charm. All of the girls wanted to be the ones to taste his rifle first, and they began beating her ugly ass up. But luckily, Kazuki didn't see anything before leaving the submarine. JB told him not to fight against Oslo, saying that even Asako wasn't able to defeat him. After all this time, she revealed that 6 years ago, Akko was one step away from eliminating him, but he had grabbed a gun and fired at her when her guard was down eventually. That wound was the reason she ended up developing the disease and dying. But even so, Yugi knew this was even more of a reason to eliminate him as he walked away. Yugi swore that he would be coming back, but JB couldn't hold back her tears after boarding the helicopter. Kazuki said they will be eliminating the Fato system before Oslo could reach it, and since it was currently in emergency mode, its only power source was the backup air farm. So all they needed to do was cut the suboceanic cable to delete the cyst system as Millie flew him towards Oslo. She wondered what he's fighting for, so Yugi said that he doesn't want to be the type to run away from his duties, because in order to create change, he needed to become the change he was seeking. On top of that, if he couldn't beat evil without becoming evil, then he swore to become evil itself. At the same time, the girls had finally located the cable's location and sent off Mitu into the ocean, since no one would be missing her ugly ass if she died next to Oslo's. naval base. Yugi noticed a man who had no idea about the evil he was involved in, or how many innocent people he'd helped kill. Still, Yugi knew he was no different, but because they were the same, Eugene knew it was his duty to stop him. All of the guards began firing towards Yugi, but he managed to evade their bullets and eliminate them with his acrobatics. He continued leaping through the fire and using their bodies as human shields before eliminating the entire fleet. At the same time, Travis told Oslo that he'd infiltrated their base and promised to bring him back alive once he was gone. Oslo told Yugi to hurry, because there's a girl waiting for him through the darkness. Travis realized all his communications were offline and saw that all of his comrades had already been eliminated by a single kid. As he continued sneaking around, Yugi told him to drop the gun, but Travis began firing aimlessly while Yugi dodged his blows. Eventually, he began firing at a man, but it turned out to be his dead comrade from underneath. Yugi lunged to stab him down, saying that he told him to drop the gun, but the effects of his enhancers were beginning to wear off on the radio. Oslo called for Travis, but Yugi picked up the radio saying, "I am vengeance," before destroying the device from the other side. Oso realized his entire army was eliminated and ordered Yuji's replica to go and bring him back after Michu had finished cutting the undersea cable and deleting the Atnos Kazuki. Told Aman that they would be escaping to their paradise island until Yugi finished his job. However, they wouldn't be able to ever return to Japan. So she told him if she's even a little hesitant about staying with Yuji after learning about his past, then she should leave now. But to those words, Alan told her that for Yuji, if he's sad, she would be 100 times sadder for him and would even risk her life for him. Even with how dark his past was, she swore that she'd never stop loving him back on Oslo's naval base. Yuji's replica said he looked beat up, and when Yuji asked him who he was, the artificial being said he was his brother DuPont and was engineered from his genetics. However, his hair and eye color were from his sister, but he was excited to finally find out who was superior and threw a pack of enhancers to boost Yuji's physical abilities when Yuji said he wouldn't need them. DuPont told him that he was nothing but a monster already and that society had cast people like them away. So he told him to take the enhancers. At the same time, Kazuki told Amane that all that's left was to build their Eden after all Yuji's entire life had been filled with nothing but suffering. But after Isako came into his life to give him kindness, he wanted to bring that same kindness and peace to the girls he loved. Because just like him, they were the fruits of the world tree Greya, whose lives had been distorted and ruined after falling away. So she hoped that one day they all might repay his kindness to someone else and plant more seeds of helping others. This was the Eden he given up on because of his awful life. So, although there was no Eden in the world, Kazuki wanted to help create one for her little brother on the ship. Yuji shoved the enhancers away, but DuPont rushed at him and knocked him down before restraining him and injecting the shot inside of him immediately. The adrenaline began circulating and the enhancing effects activated, and as he rushed to slash him down, DuPont managed to injure him before firing his gun. As Yuji fired back, he threw his gun and used his martial arts to deflect his attacks, shooting DuPont with his own weapon as he fell onto the ground. Yuji said he would now release his brother, but when DuPont asked Yuji for mercy, Yuji hesitated. However, DuPont injected himself once more, and before Yugi could stab him, DuPont knocked him back off and began attacking him relentlessly. He called Yuji a defective weakling before kicking him away, and Yuji realized that he was in trouble. So as he got up, he decided to inject himself with more enhancers, and once they were active, he rushed back to attack his brother. However, DuPont managed to grab his knife and push Yuji away, and they began clashing their blades against one another. But as they did, Yuji saw the beautiful starry sky and thought that's what Ako must have seen before she died after losing too much blood and falling. He remembered her asking him to live for his own sake, and as DuPont rushed forward, he swore that he'd start living for his music on foro. Few minutes later, he made it to Oslo's room, and Oslo was proud that he raised one of the greatest assassins. After all, DuPont was the most expensive military tool ever developed, and he went on to reveal that DuPont's mother was none other than the girl Yuji used to love as a kid. However, Yugi said that he didn't need more reasons to kill him, and began rushing with his blade towards Oslo after dodging his attack. Oslo reminded him that he had 5 minutes before the bomb exploded, so his only hope of surviving would be to get the keys from him after drawing his blade. He told him this was the same blade Asako used to kill Travis's older brother, and thought it would be amusing to kill him with his own master's sword as he rushed forward. Oslo kicked him away, but Yuji narrowly dodged being slashed down, but even using the table wasn't enough to shield the sword, and Oslo offered to take him back, slashing down, saying he was his only family left, and that he would kill everyone else he held dear to. His blade broke, and the shock of the attack left him dizzy, so Ao stabbed him after finally killing the last ghost of his past. The ship began exploding, and there were only 2 minutes left before the nuclear bomb went off. However, Yuji continued struggling forward, but realized that he lost his escape route, and with all the bombs exploding, he felt Aso's presence looming. Step by step, he began struggling to get outside, and he swore that he would come back to the new home he'd found. 2 years later, all the girls have been enjoying their lives on the island, and the principal came to tell them that their new school was finally finished. At the same time, they wondered where Yumo was, but she was sitting next to Yuji, and she was angry at him for disappearing for an entire year. However, he told her that after the explosion, he was left paralyzed for 11 months. But since he somehow managed to escape death once again, he thought that it was because he wasn't allowed to die yet. But to those words, Yumo told him that even if God wanted to kill him, she wouldn't allow him, shocking him after hearing those same words once again. And she asked him to live for all of their sakes. A few moments later, all of them gathered to take their school opening ceremony photo. Even though they would go on to spend their entire lives running, knew that even if she was offered everything in the world, she wouldn't trade it for this place. They created the Eden of Grisaia.